This is me, Amala Ebanobi. I live in Los Angeles. I love to sing, play music, and read. I work at a place called PragerU, and chances are, hearing that name, you instantly fall into one of three categories. You either groan, oh them. You cheer, oh them. Or you scratch your head and think, never heard of them. If you're in category 3, well, welcome to the internet and buckle up, because this little organization has been getting a lot of press lately. From the New York Times front page to the Los Angeles Times and many more, including an unintentionally glowing review from BuzzFeed who wrote, "It took 2 months for PragerU to mold a conservative." But the more you hear about PragerU and its outsized influence, the more a casual observer starts to wonder. What is this PragerU? Why are these organizations afraid of PragerU? Is it a real university? And where did this PragerU come from? That's a lot of questions. But I think to truly talk about the impact that PragerU is having, we need to rewind back to when I was a little girl in Florida, because PragerU changed my life. In 2008, when Barack Obama was elected president, my mother sat in front of the television and she was just crying. And I looked at this woman, a little doe-eyed 8-year-old, and I'm like, why is she crying? Why is she crying? This is the person she advocated for. This is the person she supports. And she looked at me and she said, well, he's the first Black president. This is an amazing day. Just tears filling her eyes. And I remember at 8 years old going, oh wow, well, this skin color must be super important. I wonder why that's so important. So when I graduated, I thought it was far more important to be an activist than it was to go to college. So I would go into work every single day and we'd sit in these meetings. And at the beginning of these meetings, we do something called community agreements. And I remember a coworker of mine finished up by saying, and to all the white people in the room, maybe you shouldn't speak at all. You've had the stage for long enough. So my father is a Nigerian immigrant and my mother is a white American born and raised here. And I would go into work every single day, 9 to 5, and hear all this blatant racism towards white people, and then go home to the family that was caring for me, was just two ideas that I couldn't hold in my head at the same time for very long. And I got the feeling of, oh no, I'm in the wrong room. And so I went searching, and as any young person does, I went on the internet. I stumbled across one video in particular, and it's called Cops Are the Good Guys by PragerU. And I thought in my head, how could anybody possibly believe this? Click. And I just sat there for a second, like, am I wrong about everything that I've thought my entire life? And that was just stepping into the rabbit hole for the first time. I had a lot of fear associated with coming out on the internet as a conservative. I knew that there were certain people in my life that weren't going to take it well, so I waited a long time. But in October of 2019, I just felt this extreme urge to get on the internet and start saying what I needed to say, what I felt needed to be said.
Awesome. Can you grab your phone?
Oh, it's gonna be cringy, yes. I will do it. Here it is.
Yeah, I was born to be the greatest. Yeah, I was born to be your favorite. Look, mom, on the billboard, I made it. That's what I dream every day, so I say it. Yeah, I used to be broke, though. Money was so-so, used to be loco. But I was born to be the rich.
How PragerU saw that and thought, let's hire her is... That's hilarious. Right. Okay. So right now, PragerU is a massive nonprofit organization that has amassed over 5 billion views across all our different platforms, all the different content mediums that we put out. But we were not always like this. PragerU was simply an idea that started with 2 men, Dennis Prager and Alan Estrin.
The idea of Prager University did not begin with Prager. It began with Estrin.
This notion that there was a new way using the internet to spread the ideas that were so important to the creation of America, that was interesting. So in 2009, we got the idea off the ground. We did these initial videos. We had some success. We quickly realized if this thing is going to work, we're going to need somebody to actually run the operation.
First interview, take one, Mark.
And action. I remember 10 years ago walking into a pretty empty cafe.
So in 2011, Dennis and I had lunch with Marissa.
And they started describing this idea of what they called at the time Prager University, a way to get information out there, a way to teach what isn't taught.
It was obvious from the get-go that this was an extraordinary woman.
She became the CEO of Prager University. She built PragerU.
So early on, Alan called me a general without an army. I had no employees. We were working out of my kitchen, and we were just sitting there figuring out, how do you get this penicillin for the mind that Dennis has to the masses?
I thought, if we make these great videos, people will find it. Every video will go viral. And then it hit me. We were violating a basic Hollywood rule. And the basic Hollywood rule is you need to spend as much on marketing as you do on production.
In 2015, I hired Craig Strazzeri, who was our chief marketing officer.
She'll cover all the things I messed up on. So in 2015, we really had a big shift in mentality for the brand. We went from Prager University to renaming ourselves PragerU. And the shift was to not just be only an educational institution, but really like a media company. All of our videos started to get a fresh new look and cohesive brand strategy.
And then in 2016, something very significant happened at PragerU. We realized that we have the power to change the conversation.
So in 2016, we actually had our first viral video. The video was on the Electoral College, just explaining in 5 minutes, what's the Electoral College, why do we have it, and why it's important. So right around the election, when the Electoral College became the big issue everyone was talking about, a lot of people started searching for it online. And our video was one of the best primers on the subjects, and people started sharing it. It was over 50 million views within a few days of the election. That's a good chunk of America.
And then around 2015, 16, 17, we started to get a lot of attention from the left. They started writing about how dangerous PragerU was. And we loved it.
The New York Times, for example, did not only a front page article on PragerU, but it was a Sunday edition. So meant to have as many readers as possible. And we learned later that they delayed and delayed and delayed publishing it because it didn't badmouth us enough.
We've had a lot of hit pieces, a lot of attack pieces on PragerU over the last few years, and we wear those as a badge of honor. Every time a major media company tries to write a hit piece on us, we promote it, we share it.
We are in the mind-changing business. Few groups can say that.
One of the other big videos was the history of the Democratic Party, presented by Carol Swain. That video has over 28 million views and has changed a lot of minds. And on that particular video, one of the minds changed was Amala.
I think there is this massive thirst for non-yelling authenticity. And we change people's lives because the ideas are so good.
A recent survey showed that up to 70% of viewers have changed their mind after watching one of our videos. And over 60% of our viewers on YouTube are under the age of 35.
When people hear the truth, they start to wonder about everything they've been told.
10 years ago, we started with 5-minute videos once a week. Now we make 40 pieces of content every single week. Mini documentaries, short content, long-form content, grown-up shows, kids shows. And we also brought on our own influencers, people like Will Witt and Amala Apanobi. The reason we bring on these influencers is because we want people like my children and your children to actually have a good role model to look up to.
Hey, Will.
Hey, you actually picked up.
What are you talking about? I always pick up for you.
You never pick up for me.
When I see the name Will Witt pop up on my phone, I drop everything I'm doing. I'm like, I'm sorry, honey. Will Witt's calling. I need to drop this family dinner so I can talk with him.
You're really going overboard with this.
That's exactly what I do.
The bigger we got, the more enemies we had, and that included big tech. And so suddenly we went from this tiny little PragerU to an organization that really changed the way people talk about things. So it didn't go unnoticed.
So since you brought up censorship, let's jump into that. PragerU is suing Google and YouTube. Can you weave that story for us? Dennis, interview take 1. Marker?
For the first time in American history, censorship is a very, very real threat to free speech. And PragerU was sort of the canary in the mine because we were the biggest in the beginning of the YouTube, Google attacks.
In 2016, one of our viewers tells us that our videos are being censored, they're being restricted on YouTube. Okay, it's obviously a mistake. A few days later, they write to us and say, it's not an algorithm issue. Your videos violate our community standards. And they start restricting a whole bunch of videos. Almost random. Things like why the US fought the Korean War. Now here is the key point. Our basic vision, the ideas that we put out, they haven't changed. YouTube changed. They pivoted.
We're in the world of education and public information, and we want the public to be aware of the fact that there is real censorship out there, and we want to give people the power and the tools to fight against it. And that is why in 2017 we decided to sue Google YouTube, because we believe in the First Amendment and we believe in the importance of freedom of speech.
If censorship is allowed to run amok, the future of the United States is similar to that of the Soviet Union. That's what characterized the Soviet Union, suppression of free speech. That's the difference between a free country and a totalitarian state. A positive future for this country is not guaranteed. PragerU is fighting for appreciation of the unique values of the United States. So ask me if I'm hopeful. It doesn't mean anything to me. All I ask is, what do I have to do? I have to fight.
I think that Americans are incredibly patriotic. I think that they respect and love our country. And I think that if you look at the growth that PragerU is experiencing, you can be optimistic about our future because the people are behind us.
None of the outward access of PragerU matters if individual lives are not being changed. That is our sole purpose, is to meet other people who are like me or like Will and influence those people to get more active, or influence those people to simply look further into what they believe.
I think the story of Amala Panobi is the story of many Americans. They watch a PragerU video, they realize that they have never heard the truth before, and then they want to become part of the solution by becoming active in our movement.
I was doing an event at Cal State Fullerton, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like, Will, I gotta tell you something. I'm like, what? What do you need to tell me? He's like, you remember 3 years ago, you did a video on Hollywood Boulevard where you went and asked people if they could name the vice president, and you asked me, and I couldn't even tell you who the vice president was? I was like, oh yeah, I remember that video. He's like, well, I was one of those guys. And I saw that video, and now I'm a completely different person, conservative. Now I'm the one who goes and educates all my friends and family about things because you talked to me in that video. It was an incredible thing to me. Just that me going and talking to someone and having someone realize like that I don't have all the information makes them feel passionate and inspired enough to go and want to be a knowledgeable and passionate person. The normal college kid or someone in your work or your family, they're not this evil, horrible person, and probably they've never even heard these ideas before. It really does start with compassion. And it starts with humility too, that we are going and talking to people and saying, hey, I might not have all the answers too.
Here's what it ultimately comes down to. Is the truth bigger than PragerU? Is it bigger than YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Twitter? Is it bigger than any platform anybody could imagine? The PragerU answer to that question is a definitive yes. It's why PragerU will never stop fighting, never give up, because PragerU believes in the truth. We believe in the power of the truth.
At the end of the day, the only reason that PragerU exists is to communicate truth to anybody who is willing to listen to it.
That 65% of views are people under 35. That 16-year-olds run over to me at an airport for a selfie. I did not expect this.
There are thousands of people like Amala out there who watch PragerU videos and then get emboldened and they become part of our movement.
So our videos have over 5 billion views in just our first 10 years. Every single day, up to 4 million people are watching PragerU on a daily basis. But we don't want to just reach people with views. We want to make sure we're changing their mind. We want to make sure they're learning something new. So we've invested in a lot of data and studying and measurement to see if our videos are in fact moving the needle. A recent survey showed that over 90% of our viewers are learning something new from a video. The best way to reach young people is through digital media, aggressive marketing, advertising, and content that young people actually like.
They watch a PragerU video, they realize that they have never heard the truth before. Once they realize that they heard the truth, they want more of it, and they share the videos, and then they want to become part of the solution. And that's the story of Amala, and that's the story of everybody here at PragerU.
Let the audience decide. If you don't like the idea, you have a different ideology, that's fine. PragerU will never stop fighting for truth.
Messy, uncomfortable, beautiful, unchanging truth. That is what we always have and always will pursue as an organization. PragerU changed my life, and that's why PragerU exists.
Good. That's cut.
It only took 15 times. Much better than my batting average, okay?